Welcome to Negotiating Happiness, the show that helps you find happiness, success, and balance in your work and life. I'm Adriana Fiestro, your host for this journey into entrepreneurship and personal growth. We're broadcasting live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans as part of the United Public Radio Network. We explore the latest strategies, insights, and stories from successful entrepreneurs and experts. From managing stress to building a thriving business, we've got you covered.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It is Monday, May 22nd, and we are live here with Negotiating Happiness. I'm your host, Adriana Fiestro, and our guest today is Yacinta Selaj. Did I say that wrong? Or do you?
Well, it is pronounced Selaj, but oftentimes I just say Selaj too.
Right. Selaj. my mistake. So if you're just tuning in, grab your lunch, grab your coffee, and come chat with us. So we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And we are streaming across all major platforms. You can find us on YouTube, on Facebook, on SoundCloud, and a lot of the shows on the network are also on Roku TV, so check those out. And again, welcome. Today we've got a pretty special episode. Yacinta is not only my guest, but she's also my longtime friend. So she is the owner of Monkey Mount Books and Pademelon Publishing and a professor of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So what is Monkey Mount? Monkey Mount is a community created by Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Judo black belt Yacinta Selaj with the intent of inspiring her students to see the magic in the martial arts that have transformed her own life. She knows how challenging martial arts can be, and she hopes that by making it fun and creative, it will help her students stay engaged for the long run. Professor Yacinta is among the elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in Canada, and she holds accolades from the most prestigious competitions around the world and is also featured on the BJJ Heroes website. She's also represented Team Canada at the Junior World Championships for Judo, and moreover, her passion and focus now is to bring together the wonderful talent in the community and leverage martial arts as a means to empower our children through confidence building and resilience training, show young girls that strong is beautiful, and improve mental health in the community. Yacinta will also dive into why she started her own business and the importance of finding purpose in her work. We will also be touching on what it's like for Yacinta to run her own business, practice martial arts, having a military spouse, and how that affects her day-to-day life, all while planning a wedding. So I'm super excited to dive in today. So hello, welcome.
Hi, Adriana. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
I'm so excited that we're finally able to make this happen. And for such a good reason too. It's such a positive meetup. It's not just like work meetup, right? I want to talk about all of your wonderful books. I gave viewers a little preview of it on social media. I posted all the covers. My son owns a couple of your books. My friends' kids have a couple of your books. So I'm super excited that I'm always that friend that's like, my friend made this. My friend is the author. My friend created this beautiful thing. So tell us about Monkey Mount. Tell us what inspired you to start it, and obviously we've heard a little bit of the purpose, but I think it's wonderful that you're taking into account. I mean, it's such a sensitive topic, right? Like mental health for children, for everybody. So I want you to tell me your side of it.
Yeah, I guess there's just so much to say, but thank you so much for supporting my books. It means so much. One of my favorite things is hearing that people are buying the books and that the kids are loving it, that they're reading it before bed, that they're excited to color in the pages, and that it makes martial arts exciting because, as you know, it's always been such a huge part of my life. Like we met doing judo back in the day.
A long time ago.
I don't know, 15 years ago.
Maybe.
And it's just been a constant in my life. It's brought so much value. When I was younger, though, I remember it not being as exciting. I just always wanted to quit. I wanted to do something else. And my goal teaching kids and creating Monkey Mount books is to make it fun, to make it magical, to make it exciting, and also to incorporate it into their lives outside of training. So it's not just they're going to class, they do the jiu-jitsu, they go home, and then they don't talk about it. They can still go home and read books about it. They can still color in pages, and it kind of makes it more a part of their life and adds a fun, creative aspect kind of to this, to the martial arts.
Can I just say that when we were doing it, I remember like we would have to like hunt down like any patches or anything that we could find that was like judo related or martial arts related. And there wasn't a lot of materials that would kind of display like what our passion was, or there was always this like joke about and I saw this actually online like a few years ago and I just burst out laughing. It was always the like you were always the kid that was like, hey, do you want to come for a sleepover or do this? I can't, I have judo, right? Like single thing was I can't, I have judo. Do you want to like go? I can't, I have judo. Like, you know, it was so funny, and I just started laughing because it was like we spent so much of our time doing it and we didn't really have like we had our club, our coaches, and our friends that we made through judo, but it's so cool to see like materials and like for educational purposes, for fun, and it nurtures like our interests and passions. It shows kids that martial arts aren't just some like far away remote like sport that everybody else but people here in Canada or the US. Like I know that in the US it's probably a little bit more common, right? But I feel like in Canada not everybody really knows about martial arts. So yeah, sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to say like how great it is that you're actually producing material that we never had as kids, you know?
Yeah, no, and you really hit the nail on the head. Like, given that when we were growing up, people didn't even know what it was, and so they couldn't relate to it at all. They're like, what is judo? Was mainly the question we would be asked, or people would make jokes where they'd be like, oh, judo chop.
Judo chop, oh my God.
Which is the classic joke about judo, because there is no chopping in judo. But yeah, so then creating things to make it more accessible so people can see like the techniques and like the different coloring pages where they have the names of each of the techniques. And so some of the kids in my class, they'll come back to me like when I'm teaching a new technique and they're like, oh, I know that technique. I just colored it the other day. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. It just makes me so happy. And then they can share it with their parents, and it just makes it more accessible to everyone. But I guess my whole story started back when I was working in insurance. Along my life path, I wasn't really sure on what I was doing. The only constant in my life was always martial arts. And so then I ended up doing a university degree in language. After that, I ended up working for an insurance company. And then I worked for another insurance company, and all of that was about 5 years. And I just wasn't happy. For me, I needed to feel a sense of purpose in my life. And that was always just kind of nagging at me that if I stay down this line 20 years down the road, I'm not going to be happy with what I've done, because I feel like I'm not using any of the things that I'm good at. I'm not doing anything that gives me purpose or a sense of fulfillment. And so when I made the decision that I wanted to do something else, it seemed like stars aligned. You know, when you kind of make a decision, opportunities seem to come out of all corners, and it was great. Like I had a friend who was talking about publishing books online, and then I got interested in that, and then I took a course about it, and I've always been a creative person, which I've put on the back burner when I was working in the insurance industries. And the second I started doing it, all of the like creative flow started coming back to me. And it just picked up from there. And then from all of the feedback that I've been getting, it's just been absolutely amazing to see the effect that it has on little kids, and the excitement that is around all of the books, especially when there's a new book coming out. Everyone gets really excited about it as well. So yeah, that's kind of where I am now in a short form.
That's really cool. And the other thing is it kind of prepares them too, right? Like I remember when I went for my black belt, you had to actually study, right? And you're doing katas, which is like technique, right? And you actually had to study what our moves were called, like in kanji, right? Like in Japanese, and you, for the first time ever, which was like after years of doing judo and doing competitions, I was trying to learn these techniques on paper. Like I obviously knew how to do the majority of them, and you know, I practiced them for so long, but we never had materials. So when somebody handed me materials, I was like, why haven't we seen this before? If we really are students of, you know, this martial art. So this is so cool that kids are going to be able to think about it when they're doing it. They're seeing it, they're coloring it, they're learning it, they're practicing it. Whereas we only had like the practice part, which again, it's fun. That's what you're into. It's great, but I just love the fact that they're going to be exposed to the actual, you know, moves and techniques on paper. You're actually studying. You're a student, right? So it's really cool that you're making this fun for them too. So I can't wait to put Zach into judo. I don't know much about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, so you're going to have to educate me, us, the viewers on that a little bit more, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk about the difference kind of about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Judo, because it can all get so confusing. You know, like when I talk to my friends, the amount of times I kind of had to explain to them, because you look at it and they're just like, it's martial arts. There's not that much that people know about it, especially in Canada. I think a bit more in the US, but even then, I don't think like a lot of people have no idea. So Judo is, the goal of Judo is to throw someone on their back. And so when you throw someone on their back, then you win the match. The goal of Jiu Jitsu is to have a submission. So a submission meaning choke, an arm bar, any type of lock. So at different levels, different types of locks are legal. So such as arm bars, leg locks, ankle locks, shoulder locks.
For anyone listening, think of wrestling, right? That's where wrestling gets a lot of their moves from. So just if anyone's trying to picture it, right? Yeah, think of wrestling. That's more. We do have some of that in judo too, though, right? We have the newaza part, which is the groundwork, right? So we do get to choke, to do arm locks, and there's certain things that are not legal, right? I forget
exactly, like the shoulder locks or the leg locks. And certain positions. And so then judo will focus more on the takedown aspect, where you're throwing your opponent on their back, whereas jiu-jitsu will focus more on the groundwork aspect. So think of the wrestling on the ground, if you'd like, trying to get to that submission. And then you can throw in like similar sports as well. So wrestling, where the goal is also to get them on their back, but in different ways. You're not wearing that kimono or the pajama looking thing, if you'd like.
A gi is what we call it. Yeah, a gi.
Yeah, so hopefully that clarifies a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's great that, you know, not a lot of people are able to practice their passion, their hobby, you know, or have a hobby in their passion. Never mind have a whole business attached to, you know, like making your living out of it. Usually if you're not like a coach, or if you don't own some sort of like club or school for this kind of thing, it's hard to make a living out of it. But it's really nice to see that people are still able to pursue their passions and kind of pass it forward to the next generation as well. So talk a little bit about, I know you've mentioned here that, hold on, I'm losing track of it. Like you teach, and I guess you got a lot of your inspiration from working with kids, right?
Yeah, So it's funny because I started my business 2 years ago, and then so that's when I started the books, and at the same time I also started teaching the kids program full time at JT6 Studio, which is located in Toronto. It's a wonderful gym, great environment, and when I had the opportunity, I said, yes, you know what, I think this is a great thing. I left my insurance job behind. And I started just running the whole kids program on my own. We have 2 age groups, the 4 to 7s and then the 8 to 12s. And I had never taught kids full time before. I had dropped in here and there to help with kids classes, but I had never run a program on my own before. So I was apprehensive about how it would be, how the kids would respond to me. And it was scary at first. Because I had to learn how they respond, what their attention level is at, what their technical level is at, and what they're able to retain, and how to keep them entertained at the same time, because it's really important that they stay engaged. And that way, hopefully, martial arts can be a part of their life in the long run, and bring many benefits for them. Mm-hmm. And I learned so much. It's incredible how fast they learn. First of all, the 8 to 12 class, pretty much you can teach them like adults. They're so focused. They love it. They pick up complex moves. It's quite amazing. And then with the younger kids, it's all about just keeping them engaged, keeping it simple and fun, throwing in fun words. So like words like crocodile or lion or just animals. And that just makes it more exciting and engaging. And so then incorporating what I've learned from that into the books was a lot of fun. And especially the storybooks that I started creating as well, where instead of at home before bed, they're just kind of reading, regular storybooks, which are great, but having jiu-jitsu aspects incorporated into it just makes it that much more a part of their lives, which is really exciting.
I feel like it normalizes the whole subject, right?
Yeah.
It's like, again, it's about accessibility to the information, right? So that not only can they tell their friends that they do it, they can show their friends, right?
Yes.
So
yeah,
it's like visual representation is great for any subject, right? That's awesome. That's awesome that you were able to, take what you were, because we're always learning, right? You were learning, and transform it into like this beneficial, tool. It's fun. It's yeah, I'm just so incredibly proud of you.
Thank you.
Because I'm always like, this is my friend, and she has a whole business, doing what she loves, and that's hard. And that's why I wanted to start this podcast / radio show, because I wanted to talk about, the things that other entrepreneurs understand that maybe other non-entrepreneurs don't necessarily understand right off the bat, but they might be interested, or they might be inspired into starting their own business as well, or to continue with something, right? Like if you're having challenges or whatever it is. But I wanted to talk about why it's important to do what you want, because we spend so much of our lives working. Why are we working, doing things that we despise, or that where we feel uncomfortable, or where we feel beaten down, when there are such wonderful alternatives as this, where you can figure out a way to make what you like work for you and still pay your bills and still find that balance, right? Maybe if it was because you are working in teaching as well, maybe if it was somebody else, they'd be like, no, I want to do something different, right? Like I teach enough or whatever. But for you, in your case, you said you wanted to incorporate that into your creative side, right? So it's so important to show people that the arts are not dead, and we still need to support the arts. And I know that sports are exciting, but also they have some amount of creativity that is attached to them. And I think it's so important for young kids to have that kind of discipline. And I know that people just say this, but they don't quite understand like what kind of discipline sports kind of brings on, regardless if it's martial arts or not. But I feel like martial arts is like next level discipline, because there are so many rules that you have to understand, that you have to respect, whether it's rules about fighting outside of your club, whether it's rules about the practice itself that stem from other cultures that you have to understand, whether it's rules about just authority and coaching, and rules about how to train to be a high performance athlete. There's just so many rules, and I think that provides a child with a well-rounded understanding of how to understand, digest, and be okay with discipline, right? It's a really positive thing, I think, because while you're young, somebody controls that discipline for you. But when you're older, nobody controls that discipline. And there are children who've never been disciplined, and they have a really hard time functioning because they've never had these boundaries or these rules in place, right? Like, it's so important to have that. But at the same time, it's not all not fun, not games, right? With sports, like, there's also the creative side of it that you're helping to bring out in this, which is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up so many interesting points there that I'm going to try to respond to all of them, but I agree for sure.
I talk a lot. You should know this by now.
It's great because I'm more of an introvert, you're more of an extrovert. It works out. We're balanced.
Yes, we work well.
But yeah, for the discipline, it's true. It just provides structure with which kids need, and it helps them organize their lives. And when you have that organization and that discipline within your life, you feel more fulfilled because all your ducks are in a row and you can see it, and it's not all chaos, in your mind. And so it's healthy, and it's hard to learn when you're older. And so building that structure at a young age, I think, is really important. And I think that martial arts, especially Jiu Jitsu and Judo, which are the ones I'm more familiar with, build a lot of resilience in kids because it's very difficult on the body. Like, I remember I started Judo when I was 6, and you're actually physically wrestling. You're using your body against the other body to try to get in these positions while they're fighting back. It's a safe environment, but it is very difficult. It can be overwhelming when someone pins you down in the osaikomi, as you call it in Judo, or they're holding you, or they're on your back, and knowing how to stay calm, breathe in those situations, and get out it just builds so much resilience. I just keep saying the same word, but really it does. Like, watching the kids when they first start in the program that I'm teaching, and just even like a few weeks later, they have all of this confidence. They learn how to move their bodies. They learn a lot about different movements that they never knew how to do before. Like, even just like a simple like forward roll, which is pretty much like a somersault, or a backward roll. Just when you're constantly encouraging them, and when they build that confidence in things they can do with their body, it builds confidence within themselves as well. It really is a beautiful thing that's hard to describe until you really experience it. And you can start as an adult as well. And it's just different from all the other sports that I've done in my life. And I've done a lot of sports. I've always been very athletic. I was on basketball team, soccer team, flag football team, swimming team, badminton, the whole shebang. But doing martial arts is just something, is just different, and it's special, and I never get bored of it. And it's the one thing I've always stuck with. So.
Yeah, no, that's I can relate to what you're saying. And it's funny that you say the word resilience over and over, because we had an episode where we talked about embracing failure and about how it builds resilience. And your sports are a great way to do that, because again, it's usually in a controlled, safe environment. And even though you failed, the damages might not be as, or the risks, the stakes are not as high as like when you fail with your business, right? So building resilience is extremely important, and maybe you can take some of that into your later adult years, and maybe you're working for yourself, or you're whatever you put your head to, or what you put your mind to accomplish, at some point you're going to have to experience some sort of failure, right? And we can only learn from that. It's about mindset, right? So we talked about mindset, we talked about, so this all kind of like fits in perfectly. It's funny because you don't have kids, but you touched a lot on parenting values, right? Like putting kids in sports and teaching kids and how to deal with young kids, and which is great. We usually talk a lot about kids and what it's like to run your business. What do you envision for yourself, like if you get to that point, if you want to get to that point with kids, your own kids, I should say?
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely want kids. I just they're so wonderful, and they teach you so. There's something special about teaching kids versus teaching adults, because I also teach adults, and I do a lot of one-on-one sessions, and I have some clients that I've had for a very long time. But the relationship you build with kids is so different, and the responsibility you have is so much higher, because
there's trust
to you. Yes.
Because there's trust. That is a major thing that you will notice, that adults don't trust each other as much as they're nice to each other. They don't trust each other, whereas kids, they trust you, and that's where their responsibility. I 100% agree. I used to do the small kiddie classes, like the 3, 4, 5-year-olds, and they were so much fun. But they just trust you. They just think that you know everything, and they just trust you. And you're like, oh my God, like I do not know. And now that I have my own kid at that age, I'm like, why are these parents like? Why would these parents let me do anything with this? I don't know what I'm doing. But you know what I mean? It's your imposter syndrome kind of like coming up. But
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you do have a lot of responsibility, especially with you producing content for children, because like as a parent, I want to know what my kid's reading. I want to know what he's watching. I want to know who's shaping his thinking. So you have a tremendous responsibility into how, how parents view you or your content, how kids view you and your content. So yeah, this isn't like all fun and games. Like there has to be some sort of strategy, and so tell me, so I guess like we'll go a little bit on the business side, and then we can get back to the fun stuff. But what are some of the challenges, I guess, when you are dealing with children's content? What have you found? It could be anything from how to market it or how to target your ideal ideal client, anything. And what are some of the challenges with creating kids content?
Well, being a martial art, and a lot of people not knowing about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or Judo, they don't know like some of the submissions, for example. So like the arm bar or the triangle, or like chokes, for example, which is a very normal thing in these martial arts. You do it within a safe confine, and you're always supervising. And then, when they feel they need to tap, then they tap twice, meaning you hit your hand twice, and then that means you give up, and then you start again. So kind of displaying these in kids' books, I was very hesitant at first, because if a parent sees that, they're like, oh, I don't want my child doing that. Because yes, obviously this is it's a form of self-defense. It's a way to protect yourself. And so I wanted to make sure that it was portrayed in the correct way. So I portray it with characters that are both smiling, for example, in the coloring book. So it's you can see it's a mutual thing. Positive. It's not an aggressive kind of thing. I don't want to encourage violence in any way. And it's really about the aspects of the techniques. So I focus on the techniques. This is the technique. I say the name. They're fun characters. We're all having kind of fun. And also the techniques I display in the books, I'm also really careful with them as well. So they're very simple techniques that I guess wouldn't trigger parents or kids when they're looking at them.
Yeah,
it's just techniques that they would have seen in their class, and they'll be like, oh, look, the technique is in the book. And so that's kind of fun and cool. And I just make sure that it's all kind of fun and safe, and you can see and you can see the context that it happens in. So that is something I thought a lot about. But for me, I think I thought about it more even I overthought it, because I have had nothing but good responses from people. They're like, oh, I love that we can see the techniques in the book. I love that you can see this. I haven't had any adverse responses. So maybe I'm also overthinking it. Yeah.
No, but honestly, it's such a great point that you bring, because I'm looking at it as somebody who has some knowledge of the techniques that you're displaying, but imagine somebody that has no knowledge. It's so true. Like, I never even thought about that. That is 100%, that is what you would need to do. But at the end of the day, I have to say that at the end of the day, it's up to the parent to bring these different types of nuances into their kids' lives. So I constantly have to say to my kid, like, okay, we can do this at home, but we can't do this at daycare, right? Or I'm sure it changes with age, right? But it's the same type of nuance, right? Like, yeah, we can do this on the mats at the club, and we can fight with consent, obviously, but we can't do this at school, and we can't do this at, like, it's up to the parent to instill this. It's not solely your responsibilities as a creator, but I love that you take that responsibility so seriously, that you think about these things, and that there is context, and that there is an assurance that this is not, because it must be hard, right? Because they teach them, okay, we're keeping our hands to ourselves. Like, well, that's literally like the antithesis of martial arts. We are not keeping our hands to ourselves. So there's a time and place, and you do a great job at, addressing that. So good for you. That's
Thank you.
Yeah. But like I'm learning, and I feel like I know some of the stuff already, but it's crazy now when you're involving a little person. You have control over what they're digesting, right? So
for sure. And then all the techniques that I've shown in the books or in the coloring books have all been, for the Jiu-Jitsu ones, IBJJF legal, meaning the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation. All of their competitions have these techniques, are legal for kids, because the kids' rules are different than the adult rules. So that way they won't go to a jiu-jitsu class afterwards and try the technique they see in the book. Because all of the techniques in the books they're allowed to do, so they won't do anything that they're not supposed to. So I've been very specific with that, just to make sure kind of all of my ducks are in a row and everything looks good. But I think it's important.
For you have to do it with intention. Anything that you do, I believe you have to do it with intention. So we're just about probably just past halfway through here. So I'm just doing a quick ID for those that are just tuning in. You are listening to Negotiating Happiness, and we are live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We are streaming across all popular platforms. You'll find us on particularly, probably the most popular ones are Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud. And some of our shows on the network are actually on Roku TV as well. So check us out. And we are here with Yacinta Selaj, and she is a owner and author of Monkey Mount Books. She's also a professor of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and she's also a Judo black belt. So we are just touching on what it's like to run her business, and creating kids books, and just life stuff in general that everybody's used to us talking about. So let's switch over to some of the fun stuff. So your spouse is in the military, and you're planning a wedding, and you're running your business, and you're working, and I think you have a puppy too, right?
I do. Yes.
You do. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what your life looks like day to day.
It's funny because all of these changes kind of happened at once. Like I got my puppy during COVID, at the beginning of 2021, and she was a rescue and needed a lot of training. She couldn't even walk on the streets on her own because she was terrified of street noises. She was terrified of cars. We had to potty train her. and really just kind of the whole thing. So that was a huge change, but she has added so much value to my life. And she helps so much with my spouse being away all the time. So him being in the military, he's constantly on training courses and doing certifications and just being sent from place to place. And having her as a constant in my life has been really, really great for my mental health, for my companionship, and she has absolutely changed my life. So for all the dog lovers out there, I would highly recommend. And then my partner is in the military. He's an artillery officer, and he's just I made the commitment when I decided to be with him that I would allow him to do what he wants to do, which his career is being in the military. And I think it's really important that I support him in that, and because otherwise it's just going to become very stressful. And at the same time, he supports me. And anytime he has a weekend off, even if he's on course, even if he's tired, or even like a weeknight off, and he's able to travel to come see me, he does. And so we kind of balance that together to make it work. But I know that at the end of the day, the location for him is really important. So wherever he gets posted, I'm going to get posted as well. I'm going to go with him. And so that's part of why I started my business, is so that way, having an online business, I can take that with me wherever I go. Whereas when I was in the corporate world before, I still had to go in the office, and those were requirements. And so I thought this was a really great opportunity to start something on my own, where I can have my own thing going, and wherever he goes, I go, and I can still do my own thing. So that's.
You mean you're not living to go to work? That's weird.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to be able to take your work with you where you go. Like, I'm sure you experience this as well, where you're not tied to a schedule. You have that flexibility to put things in your schedule as you please. And it's so freeing. It's wonderful. Yeah.
It'll only get better once you realize, like once you have kids and you realize how, at the risk of complaining again, like how hard it is,
Yeah.
And at least you could say, oh, okay, but at least I have like the flexibility in my life. Like you're setting yourself up to basically succeed in that part of your life that maybe you won't find it hard. And I don't know many parents that don't find it hard, but it's so important. Like I don't know how some of my friends do it, where they work weekends and weekdays. And I'm like, but daycare doesn't run on weekends. So like, what do you do? Right? Like, it's just it's hard. And it's, I don't know. And at the same time, but my worst fear was that I was going to go to work somewhere where I hated, and I was coming home. I was going to come home angry, and I was going to work late anyway and miss out on all of these wonderful things. Right. So, which I'm like, you're headed that way. You're getting married. Like if you guys have plans to have kids later, it's like you're doing it at the perfect time, right? Like you're setting yourself up so that later it'll become easier and easier with, you've already run the business for a couple of years. You already know the trends and how it's going. And that's great. That is so great. And I am so happy to hear other entrepreneurs talk about the flexibility. It's not always about the money. I hate it when people think it's always about the money. I'm like, listen, for the first little while, maybe you're not making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And maybe that you're making that commitment to your business. And maybe it's not for the first little while. Maybe it's for a really long time before you figure it all out. So until that, what do you think keeps me going? Because it's not the money, it's the flexibility, or it's the freedom to choose what you do with your own time. Or the best part for me was not having to explain myself to somebody that I had to stay home when my child was sick and feel bad about it. Because now thinking about it is like, why would I care what anybody else thinks? My child is sick, I'm going to be there for him. Right. And Brad and I take turns, because obviously there is still work to be done. But not having that guilt over you of having to explain to your boss why you can't come in or whatever it is because my child is sick. And yes, my child is more important than my job, like, period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is freeing to me. That
is such a great point that you brought up. And yeah, I can imagine if I had kids, I would feel the same. Or even like when I was sick, like having to explain, you're like, no, I just can't. Like they're like, well, maybe you could still log in and do a bit, the constant guilt and not being able to manage your own time and do your own things. And just for me, I think the best part is really just the sense of fulfillment that I'm doing my own thing and I'm doing something that's bringing value to others and I'm doing something that I'm good at. And not just like something that, anyone can just pick up and,
you're creating work for yourself. And eventually you're going to be creating work for others. Like, that's
right.
huge. That's huge. I think about that all the time. I'm like, I'm creating full-time income for myself. And then once I'm able to steadily give work to other people, right? Like, I do it here and there when I can, or when I really need help. But once I'm able to do that constantly, it's like, whoa, I'm going to be creating work for multiple people. Like, that's huge, right? You're not waiting on somebody to give you that. And there's nothing wrong with employment. Don't get me wrong. There are people who need that. There are people who need somebody to give them that structure so that they can be good at what they do, right? You just have to find what works for you. This might not work for everybody,
I'm so glad you brought that up because I was talking to a friend I have and she was asking me, oh, how are you liking, running your own business, doing your own thing? And I said, I love it. I would never in a million years go back. And she said, that's so funny because she's in the corporate world and she has been there her whole life. But before she was there, she was working as an RMT and she had to create her own schedule and kind of do that. And she said that she hated it. And that she wants the schedule to be created for her and where she is held accountable and she just goes in and that works for her. And then when she goes home, she's done. And she just said she could never do it the other way. And I said, okay, well, that's so interesting. But that's great. So then for some people, you have to know what your personality is. Do you need the structured job that's set out for you? And you go and you do it and you go home and forget about it. Or not forget about it. I'm not sure, how much time it takes. Or do you want to do your own thing and kind of build from scratch? And do you have, enough funds to be able to build something? Because it takes, like you said, it takes a while for I think most businesses before they build. And so you have to be able to plan for it and then invest and then really believe in it. But I think it's also important to just like focus on what you want. And because there's so many hurdles, there's so many people who are going to say, oh, that's difficult, or there's no opportunities in that. But I believe when you're genuine and when you're doing something that really comes from the heart, somehow, some way, it really comes through. People see that it means something to you. And that will help your business. If you're thinking of starting a business that doesn't mean anything for you, I believe it's a lot harder because people will see through that some way.
It's 1,000%. I agree. It's 1,000% true. I've always kind of known I wanted to work for myself, but I could never find what it was that I was either passionate enough about or good enough or right. So that's why I feel like I tried out a couple of things while I was going to school and while I was working as an adult full time. And I'm glad I did, right? Because it exposed me to a lot of different things that I now use to help business owners, right? And just one day it just clicked. That's what I was supposed to be doing. And I'm so glad and there are people that are probably still in the same stage, right? Where they just don't know or where they just don't, or they haven't figured out 100%, or maybe they're just letting the imposter syndrome get in the way, right? Like sometimes I say this, we're our own biggest obstacles, right? Other people believe in us, but how come we can't believe in ourselves, right? So, but I'm so glad that you said that you have to find that thing that will be able to show to other people that either A, you know what you're talking about, or B, you care enough about it that you will figure it out, right? So that's so important, especially when you have clients or when you have to deal with vendors or you have to form these different kind of relationships where they don't owe you anything. So like with an employer-employee relationship, you owe each other mutually the same amount of responsibility. But with somebody like us, like your vendors or your suppliers don't owe you anything. It's a transactional relationship. Could it become more than that? Of course it can. But what I'm saying is it's up to you, your work ethic, your product, your showmanship, I guess, or your performance, or how you show up for yourself for those meetings to be able to build that and then create a relationship. But you don't owe them anything and they don't owe you anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I kind of like that. And I have to say that after a while, all of my clients are amazing. They all value my time. They're respectful. And I feel like even if they had, even if there were things that needed to be fixed or whatever, we figured it out. There's absolutely no conflict. And I think that because in order to keep this relationship going, I know I have to go out of my way to help, and then they have to go out of their way to be of help in solving this, mm-hmm. right? I feel like it's a much better collaboration between people. Whereas with an employee-employer relationship, I think that sometimes people get too comfortable and they just assume that one party or the other just owes them more than they actually do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's less effort that gets put in there, maybe?
Yeah. Or maybe they don't find as much meaning in what they do. So they do it, just kind of out of habit for the paycheck.
Yeah.
And so then as a result,
100%.
But yeah, like both ways, whether, the employee or the employer, it's just a different kind of dynamic. So I'm so glad you elaborated on that. And I couldn't have said it better myself. There's more respect within the relationship. And it's really wonderful. Yeah.
I think you should take some time to tell us a bit about what's upcoming, what's there, what you want people to do. I know I've got links here and I'll be posting them. This is a pre-recorded episode, I should mention, but it will be airing live on Monday. I will be in the comments, so I will be posting the links to your Amazon storefronts for both Canada and the US. Different links. And where can we find you on Instagram? Can you tell everybody?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Monkey Mount Books. So MONKEYMOUNTBOOKS. You can find me on my Facebook page, Monkey Mount BJJ and Judo Books for Children. You can find me on Amazon. So depending on where in the world you are, you would go Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.au, etc. You'll be able to find the Monkey Mount author page is the easiest way to see the whole collection of books. Or you could simply go to the Instagram page, go to the link tree, and from there you'll be able to click on the link that will take you straight to Amazon, and you'll see the whole collection of books. So currently I have 7 books that are available, and I have 2 more in the works that I will be releasing this year. The 7 books. Yeah, very exciting. So the first book was the Unicorn Coloring Book, which is one of the best sellers. It's a little girl named Ellie and her unicorn Ella, and they are showing Jiu Jitsu techniques. And it has fun background. It's so much fun. We got a lot of great feedback from this one. And I also have a dinosaur jiu-jitsu coloring book series. So it's a series of 3 books. It's called Dino Jitsu. And you can see all of the different techniques that are grouped within each of the books, or you can buy them 3 in 1 within the complete series. And then we have an ABCs book. It's also become a bestseller, even though it's the last one that has been released. So people really love this. It goes through
get that one.
Yeah, that one's a good one. It's a wonderful artist that I collaborated with that created this book. And the pictures are absolutely so beautiful and amazing. And so I know that's very attractive for children when they're looking at books. And so I made sure that they could focus on the pictures. And so it takes you from the A to Z's of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with just terms, techniques, simple concepts that they can understand, with beautiful, gorgeous pictures and different animals in the book. And then we have Jiu-Jitsu Kangaroo, a short little story, short and sweet, about the Jiu-Jitsu kangaroo and how this kangaroo started Jiu-Jitsu and how that helped him overcome some bullying. And we have, this one is probably not in, so it's not selling a lot right now because it's a Christmas book, but during Christmas time, it's our bestseller. It's How My Jiu-Jitsu Saved Christmas, the story of a little girl, Gigi, and how she used her Jiu-Jitsu to save Christmas. So very exciting. Also beautiful images in that book as well. And then I have the one Judo book so far, which is a coloring book, dinosaur coloring book called Dino Judo, with a ton of judo techniques.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I can't wait to post the links. And I think on Instagram, I already posted the covers. They're beautiful. What else is in the works for you? Tell us about your future projects, because we're obviously going to want you to come back on when those come out, so you can show us.
Yeah, so I am working on an activity book, so I'm really excited about that, as well as a short story book. I won't say too much, just kind of keep you on your toes. But those are the two books that are coming out this year. And I also offer wholesale. So if you reach out to me on Instagram, on my Facebook author page, then you'll be able to reach me. And if you're interested in wholesale, we can make that happen within Canada and the US.
Amazing. And I know you're working on your website, so
yes,
soon you'll have a direct route to
to all of the links and all of the information. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. And I have to get that last one, the ABCs one as well. Yes. I don't know if I have the judo one. I think I had the jiu-jitsu one. I had the unicorn.
Really?
I think I'm missing a couple. So
yeah.
So if one last question, I usually do this at the end, is what I want to know, I know there is. Everybody has a thing. What makes you happy? Like, not professor you or business owner you, just you to your core. What makes you happy? What do you like to do to achieve that?
Wow, that is probably the biggest question ever, isn't it? It's so funny, but it kind of comes down to having a balanced life. So my personal life with my family and friends, and really investing in those relationships in my life. And then finding purpose in my work would be the second thing, where I feel a sense of fulfillment, engagement. I'm constantly getting messages from parents. I got one this morning about, thank you for what you do. We can tell how much you love teaching our kids, and you're doing so well with them, and just having that sense of purpose within the work I do. And then the third thing would be focusing on my health. And so being able to stay fit, going in nature, getting fresh air, just walking my dog and seeing her run is like one of my favorite things. And so I think a combination of those, like my relationships, my purpose in my work, and time for myself where I can, whether it's meditation, whether it's going for walks out in the woods, I love like getting out in nature, or staying fit, going for a run. I think those three things make me happy.
Whereas I think that going for a run for me is like the antithesis of what makes me happy. So see, this is why I ask. I would never go for a run to be happy.
Right.
Although the endorphins might say something otherwise later. In my mind, I'm like, no, I think I do like hiking. I like hiking. I like traveling. I like being active. Even when I was like fit, running was my least favorite thing in the world. So that's so funny. I had Jill on a few weeks ago, and like she wakes up at 5 to work out. I was like, oh my God, like that is literally the worst thing that I could possibly think of in my brain that would make me happy. So again, we're all so different. That's why I like to ask, right?
Yeah.
And how's, just quickly before we're off here, how's wedding planning going?
It's good. I'm sure all of the past brides out there know how overwhelming it can be. Everything is going to plan so far, but I'm trying to manage my expectations. And if anything goes wrong, I have to kind of be ready and be like, it's okay. It's not going to be perfect, but it's still going to be great. So I'm prepared, for things that are out of my control. If it rains, it's okay. If the flowers are ruined, it's okay. The wedding will still happen. I'm trying to really manage my expectations because I think that's really important with happiness. But everything is great. Like, we have a lovely kind of rustic cottagey location. Rustic chic is the theme we're going for. The colors are going to be beautiful. We're organizing everything. The dress is ready. So it's exciting. It's so much though. I mean, I could have never, everyone has said it's a lot of planning, but I could have never prepared for the amount of planning and the amount of additional things that can be added or that are options, and the things that you have to choose from. Just making all of those decisions is just
so what you're saying is that wedding planners are a good investment.
Yes. And we had a wedding planner that comes with our venue, thankfully. But then she's still throwing all these options at me. Like, would you like any of these thousands of items?
Like, you know what? You pick. It'll be a surprise on the day.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and
funny.
So anyways, it's good. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, that's sounds wonderful. Is it outdoor? I should know this. Is it outdoor or indoor?
It's so like the ceremony, we're sitting outside. Unless it rains, then the chairs will be brought in. And then the reception will be in a glam tent.
I love
kind of outdoor, indoors.
It's outdoors, but
it's basically outdoors. It's everything is on its way to being completed. So.
Can I RSVP live right now? Because I just realized I never
RSVP'd.
We are coming.
Yay! Oh, I'm so
my
glad.
official RSVP online for the world to hear.
Excellent. I'm so glad.
Excellent.
And this will be the first time I see you in like 15 years because we've been chatting forever. But
I know. Well, I don't even remember the last time. Was that the club at one time? Probably was. Was it at the club last time I saw you? Look at Ron and Tracy's club, Full Circle Judo Club, in case anyone's wondering.
Oh yeah, wonderful. Ron and Tracy.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite people.
Yeah. I have to, what's really bad with COVID? I haven't even been able to go see them. We've been trying to make plans. We're hoping to take both Leo. So I don't know if you remember Melissa, right? With Leo, we were all going to go, and we're still trying to make it. Tracy, if you're listening, we're plans. Because honestly, COVID just robbed a lot of these firsts or meetups or relationships away from a lot of people, which, again, I'm not complaining. I understand that COVID robbed a lot of people of a lot of things. Sad things. I wish I had that for our little community, for our little judo community. So
it was a hard couple of years, for judo and jiu-jitsu, where it's a full contact sport. It doesn't get more contact than that. It's impossible. So
but we're on to better things now, right?
Yeah, it's all picked back up again, and so thankfully, we're going strong. Yeah. But I'd be curious to know what is your answer to what makes you happy?
Travel, not mom me, not entrepreneur me, not friend. Travel. Just put me on a plane and I'll figure it out. That is what, at my core. And also I keep saying this to people that are around me. Being a plant, just sit there, suck up the side, literally close your eyes and sit there. It physically changes me. I don't know what to say, but anywhere with the sun, I will sit there and I will soak it all up. And funny enough, I had an appointment this morning, and the nurse told me that I'm severely lacking in vitamin D. So I'm like, wow, I am not surprised at all, because it's my body's way of telling me, go outside and sit in the sun, right? Vitamin D.
Yeah, that is so funny. I was
That is
also deficient when
so
I
funny.
checked, I think earlier this year.
I'm like
But yeah, it's like your
really
body that.
deficient,
Yeah.
like
Uh-oh.
scary deficient. I was like, oh, maybe that's why my body's like, leave your basement, your cave, go outside.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's such an
Yeah.
easy supplement though to supplement on, especially in the winter when it's not possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, in
Yeah.
the summer, that's so funny.
It's so funny. But I always am like, go be a plant,
Yeah.
should take my own advice. But yeah. So we're at an end here. Thank you so much for coming on. This was so fun. And we'll do it again. Let me know when your other projects are coming up because I'd love to be a part of that. And thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I had so much fun. I really appreciate it. I just love chatting with you, as you know, all the time. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. You make it so fun. I love it. So thank you everybody for tuning into the show. Thank you to everyone that is in the chat room. I will be live, even though this is pre-recorded. So if you have questions, please feel free. A big thank you to the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network. And thank you for everybody that's allowing me to have this platform. I'm truly appreciative. We will see you guys next Monday. Have a good one.